for Ellie and me to come back here. And this is the very first time that anyone has asked me to give any kind of thoughts about our lives, our perspectives on Veterans Day. I am very thankful to the leadership for inviting me. And the theme of my talk to you is really symbolized in the flag of Connecticut. 300 years ago, our forefathers selected the transplanted grape leaves with the words, "He that transplants us sustains us." And that is as true in 1788 as it is today. And anyone who has been rooted up from where they grew up, either by warfare or by a better opportunity, maybe to a different town, a different state, a different country, you will understand that better than anyone else. That if we allow it, that God will place people into our lives, sometimes to guide us along the way, sometimes to give us a shove along the way. So I'm just going to bring a few things about the importance of Northwest Catholic to me, to my family, and I hope you find this worthwhile. I attended St. Timothy's School. My sister and I attended St. Timothy's School for 8 years. It was a natural progression for us to come here. And I was the class nerd in 1970. You know, I came from a long line of people who have the mechanical gene and the engineering gene. And I didn't. And I was a little socially awkward. And I just didn't fit in. And I came to Northwest Catholic, and gradually I fit in. I found things that I'd like to do. I was active in the drama tours. I found out that I excelled in foreign languages. I enjoyed being in the choir. So little by little, things happened that brought us to a better place. The biggest one, and timing is so important in our lives, but the biggest step occurred in September 1973 in room 703. Now, I hated math, but I didn't say I hated it, but I didn't do well in it. So I was convinced I could get out of here with just 1 year of algebra and 1 year of geometry. And Mr. Dick Rice came to me and said, "Well, yes, Alex, you can get out of Northwest Catholic, but you cannot get into where you want to go unless you have that 2nd year of algebra." So I was the only senior in a class full of juniors. Also at that time, I went on this special program, sort of like an outward-bound experience. And so I started class a few days late. There were 2 teachers in particular that I could tell by their demeanor they really did not like this idea at all. One was Mrs. Maria Cosentino, who was sitting over here in the corner, and the other was Sister Betsy, our algebra teacher. But a few days later, I looked across a crowded room, and in the eyesight was this young lady. I was captivated by her wit, her intelligence, her beauty, her charm. And we were doing studies in class, and she said, "Okay, if you think you're so smart, you do it." And that lady became Mrs. Ellie Sonski in December 1978. So you see, anyway, you see the value that Northwest Catholic has on so many people's lives and your own lives. And sometimes in our lives, some things happen that we don't understand it. You know, a door is closed, someone dies, someone is badly injured, something happens in your life, you just don't understand it at that point in time. This was a very good one. My grandmother showed us this box of letters from her brothers and sisters in Lithuania, and I, at the age of 14, decided to learn the Lithuanian language because I'd heard this conversed in my father's family all my life. I never understood it. So I went to the school in Hartford. There was a community there. They taught Lithuanian on Saturday mornings, and again, you know, the class nerd. I was at the age of 14 in this school with a class of 8-year-olds. They must have thought, well, what is this guy doing here? But I was able to rekindle the bonds between our families. I learned Lithuanian, and then I decided, well, gosh, if I did this well, maybe I should try another language. So I decided to learn French before I, graduated. And I had a teacher who was very inspirational to us. When you are a teacher, yes, you have the subject that you are instructing, but your own presence will inspire you for better things. In this case, Mrs. Cosentino was in my own generation. This was maybe her very first year, or very first job as a teacher. And I tried, after I graduated, to maintain some contact with them. And of course, as life happens, life takes you away, you're busy with things, and then all of a sudden, something will happen that will trigger that memory, that will bring you back to the reason that 30 years can pass, and then you find out these are the special people that God placed in your life. So, if you give me a round of applause, please give a round of applause to Mrs. Cosentino. So I'm going to leap forward to 1978, and by this time I told you that I had married my high school sweetheart. Oh, I should also say my high school sweetheart married me, because sometimes I'm not the easiest person to live with. I was a Spanish and Latin American Studies major at UConn. I wanted to maybe go into military intelligence in Europe or Latin America. The Army the bureaucracy put me into infantry at Schofield Barracks, Hawaii. And it was a very, very tough assignment. When you hear Hawaii, you think of, palm trees and Mai Tais. But this was infantry, maneuver tactics and very steep mountains. It was a job I was not really well suited for. There's some that love that kind of life, and it wasn't me. But we found I had some medical difficulties at the time. I had to have some experimental things done to me. I was in exactly the right place at the right time. Now, the key word there was experimental, because the Army picked up the tab for everything. If I had any other employer, I'd have to pay for that out of pocket, because insurance in the United States doesn't pay for things that are experimental. And we were in the ideal place to find that we could adopt our children, because we couldn't have them the good old-fashioned way. And it was very easy for us to adopt our daughter. She was 7 months old at the time, and then we continued to build our family through adoption. So again, another window open for us. So you'll see the pattern is that the door is closed, that means something else is opening down the road. Or the plan A isn't working, but there's a plan B. And at the right place, at the right time, if you believe it, God will place people into your lives that will guide you or shove you along the way. And I'm grateful I can say that, because we can't in this venue, because it's becoming more and more difficult to entwine in our lives publicly our religious faith and along with the rest of us that we are as human beings. So I'll leap forward again to 1989, 2001. This time, Ellie and I were living in Camp Hill, Pennsylvania. We moved there in 1989. There's several other things I could say along the way, but by this time I was in the Civil Affairs Unit. I deployed to Afghanistan, and in January 2001, there was, of course, a lot of trepidation. This was when the global war on terrorism was just beginning. And, marriage is very much a package deal. You will see this uniform here, and you'll see what we and what Mr. Bonner are, and maybe you don't understand all the accoutrements that go on it, but what you don't see is really what is important. And when it deals with families, it's very much the mother that sets the course, that sets the tone. And in my case, I was away for 6 years, and as President Roosevelt once told us in the 1940s, they also serve who stand and wait. And so, while I was in these different places, there was Ellie Sonski, who managed my household, paid the bills, kept the house afloat, dealt with the guff of normal teenage children, and we all owe her a big debt of gratitude. Now in civil affairs, we manage small projects that help rebuild the country. In this case, in Kabul, Afghanistan, we dealt with many projects to rehabilitate and restart schools. One of the major, or rather most well-known characteristics of the Taliban is that women are property, that daughters are not to know anything. They were not allowed to go to school, so when we rehabilitated the first school, Sultan Raziga School for Girls, fully half of the school was first grade, and those first graders were between 6 and 13 years of age, because girls were forbidden to go to school, and they were forbidden to leave the house without a male with them. When I came back, went to a team that worked to rehabilitate the Iraqi Foreign Ministry. And when I left Iraq, I had 4 going-away dinners from the Iraqis that I worked with. They were so grateful to us as a nation, and to me as a human being. And that's another thing, you know, when we went to these countries, we didn't know what we would expect. But the people in those countries, when you know them, and you're invited to their house, you must abide by their social customs, but they'll say there's 10 people, there is food on that mat, because in Afghanistan we sat in mats and sort of like reclined ate, like you see the Romans do in the movies. But you go to that family, there's food on that mat for 30 people. They have a hospitality and a genuine warmth that simply we just don't know about in this country. So I'll conclude. I think I've taken enough time. Thank you for your time. If you are not in a situation where you feel you fit in, better know yourself, your talents and your abilities, your limitations, and things will work out well for you. Have a plan B, and in 2050, one of you will be here saying the exact same things to a graduating class or a school assembly. Thank you very much for your time.